What is life? What is the meaning of all this, and is AI going to take over? All these and more important questions will not be answered today. Instead, we'll just compare to IEMs because why not? We're comparing the Kiwi ears Cadenza with the Tangzu Wan'er, and the idea is to find the best IEM under $50. Now, before we get started, I have to say that any device in this price category is going to have some quality control issues, so bear that in mind. In my testing, both of them had some channel imbalances here and there, so just buy from a place where you can return it easily, or buy it if the money doesn't really matter to you. And with that out of the way, let's talk about what's actually different between the two. If you look at the frequency response, don't get too afraid if you haven't seen one before. This part here, that's the bass response. This bit is the mids, vocal frequencies, all of that, mids, upper mids, and in the right over here is the treble section. Now, the bass you'll see is a little bit different between the two, and that is a lot more important than you think, which is why, as a responsible YouTuber, I will be talking about it later in the video, because retention, am I right? So then let's talk about the shinier things, the mids, the upper mids, that sparkly treble. The mids, well, the Cadenza from Kiwi ears goes for a more V-shaped IEM, a V-shaped sound, which means the bass and the treble is boosted, and they do this quite successfully. That is exactly what you get, because of which the mids sound a little bit warmer, a little bit more muddied, but honestly not too bad. In the upper mids is where the real difference kicks in, because that is where you have to make a decision. Do you prefer lush, intimate vocals, smoother vocals, or do you prefer vocals that are a little bit leaner sounding but has a sharper edge to it? Female voices, upper register piano keys, or even nylon string guitars, they all sound a little bit sharper on the Kiwi ears Cadenza. That's because there is emphasis in the 3 to 5 kilohertz region, whereas in the Tangzu Wan'er, the 2.5 kilohertz region gets a little more presence, and that basically makes for a smooth, lush vocal, which really hits me in the feels. Honestly, when I put these on, the Kiwi ears Cadenza was, okay, that's interesting, I'm gonna make my notes, and then I put on the Wan'er, and in 5 seconds there was this huge smile on my face. Honestly, I should have been rolling. I should have just left the camera rolling through the whole thing, but then again, I wasn't wearing a shirt, so that might have been YouTube inappropriate. Yet another reason for you to subscribe to this channel, because I almost always wear a shirt when I'm filming, like 95% of the time, I think, maybe. But really, both of them do what they're trying to do quite well. The Cadenza, in my opinion, can get a little fatiguing at higher listening volumes, but neither of them emphasize the 6-7 Hz region too much, which is where a lot of fatigue sets in, so both of them do a good job of this. In the treble region, in my opinion, the Cadenza ends up being a lot more even sounding, although the Wan'er is not far behind. It's just that there's this hole in the 10 kilohertz region, the upper treble, that you don't actually hear unless you're listening for it. And if you EQ that 10 kilohertz up, then you go, oh yeah, it does sound a little more full. But it's not a huge deal. Both of them sound very, very nice in the upper mids and the treble. It's just a matter of what flavor you prefer. Which, okay, finally, the time's come. We'll come back to the bass now, just as promised. Now, if you'll notice, the bass on the Cadenza is a little more pushed forward, and well, they were going for that V-shaped signature after all. They've achieved it. You get more bass. You get a wall of bass compared to the Wan'er. Even though it has more bass, it's not necessarily better bass. The Tangzu Wan'er, by reining in that bass rise a little, actually gives you the impression of punchier bass. All the beats, they're tighter, they're punchier, they're well controlled, and because it's not trying to produce too much bass, it ends up doing a better job of holding detail and quality of bass. And because of that, the Wan'er sounds better in a wider variety of songs. And as for the knock-on effect, because that bass rise is not so ambitious, the mid-range of the Wan'er compared to the Cadenza seems a lot more restrained, a lot more transparent, a lot more, well, closer to neutral, if you like that sort of thing. So let's take stock of what we have here. On the one hand, we have the Cadenza, which is more V-shaped and has sharper sounds in the upper mid, so vocal frequencies and the like. On the other hand, you've got lush, intimate vocals with a smooth roll-off, a better controlled bass on the Tangzu Wan'er. You've got a nicer, cleaner mid-range, which I prefer, but still has a bit of warmth in it, so it's still a little nice. It's not clinical per se. And you've got lush, smooth vocals with a reasonable amount of presence in the treble region as well. That alone is enough to make me recommend the Wan'er over the Cadenza simply because it works for a wider variety of music, but that's not all. When you talk about technicalities, which I'll do on this camera angle here to stop you from clicking away, the Wan'er actually sounds like it has a wider soundstage. Mind you, it's not actually that much wider, it's just that the Wan'er has a more clean presentation of sound, and therefore everything sounds a little more spaced out, a little well separated. Instrument separation is noticeably better on the Tangzu Wan'er than it is on the Cadenza. If you're watching a movie, well, if you've got a lot of spacey things going on, the Wan'er is probably going to sound a little bit nicer still. So now you've got, in my opinion, better tuning given the limitations of what it's working with. You've got a smoother mid-range, which just appeals to me, that's just a personal preference, and you've got better technicalities. Plus, it's a whole $15 cheaper than the Cadenza. I mean, if that doesn't make the case, I don't know what will. Looks like we've got a winner. The Tangzu Wan'er is an incredible sounding IEM for the money. But that puts it directly in competition with the change of camera angle, 7Hz 0. Is it going to unseat the reigning king or not? Switch to this camera angle to find out. Well, the 7Hz 0 is still at the top of its game. It's still one of my favorites, and now Clinical says that he tuned it. Not too surprising. There are a lot of similarities between it and some of his other work, but how does it actually fare? Well, the 7Hz 0, unfortunately, is still the reigning king in many ways. But the Wan'er is not bad either. In fact, I would say the Wan'er is the answer to a lot of you out there who saw the 7Hz 0 and wanted more bass. Now don't get me wrong, they do sound different. Where the Tangzu opts for a smoother upper mid-range, vocals and all that, the 7Hz 0 goes for a slightly thinner, sharper feel, although it doesn't boost that 3 to 5 kHz region as much as certain other IEMs like the Cadenza, which in my opinion is a much nicer way to give you those sharp edge sounds, and I think the 7Hz 0 is just such a fantastic piece of tuning, honestly. But for my preference, the Wan'er sounds a little smoother, a little nicer. In this case, I actually like both of them. The 7Hz 0 does seem like it has a smidge more treble presence, but it's not something that will really make you change one way or the other. What will make you make a decision, however, is that bass response. If you saw the 7Hz 0 and if you wanted a little more bass, then the Wan'er is a godsend because camera change for retention. While there is an improvement in bass, an improvement being based on what you want. If you wanted more bass, you get more bass from the Wan'er without pushing the bass so far forward that it ruins the tonality. Honestly, it is the best of both worlds, and at this point, I struggle to choose between the 0 and the Wan'er. But I suspect for a lot of people, the Wan'er might actually be the better choice. For one thing, it stays in the ear a lot better. I know the 7Hz 0 for a lot of people, including myself, keeps slipping out a little bit, something to do with the way it's designed, but the Wan'er doesn't do that. I mean, once it's in there, it's not going anywhere. Honestly, it's a little bit worrying sometimes. But also, you get the 7Hz 0 and you get a bit of bass and you get those smooth upper mids, which makes it very suitable to a lot of people. It really comes down to the flavor you want, which is why now we have not one but two top tier IEMs in the $20 price point. Now bear in mind, at this price point with these drivers, if you throw a lot of music at it, like an intense orchestral piece with 100 different sounds at the same time, all these IEMs are going to break down. They just can't do that sort of thing. So bear in mind the limitations. Within those limitations, however, both the 7Hz 0 and the Tangzu Wan'er are god tier as far as I'm concerned. Between you and me, I suspect a lot of people will be a little more happy with the way the Wan'er produces its bass. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and recommend that. Plus, you can always EQ the Wan'er to sound a little more like the 0, just, you know, between you and me. If you want to know how to EQ other things, or if you want to share your EQs, then join the Discord channel in the description below. But that's it for me. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste.